In this video, I'll be introducing you to the type tool and introducing you to some additional functionalities that you can use to customize your type. To get started, I'm going to go to File and New, and hopefully you've watched a couple of videos now. You know that I like to work with a 10 by 10 document, 72 pixels per inch, RGB, white background. Okay. And this is what I will be using to introduce the type tool. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit because right now my document looks a little small. And to do that, I can go to View, and you'll see that you have these basic functions for zoom in and zoom out. And I'll also note that you do have keyboard shortcuts available to you here. Okay, I am on a Mac, and so this is going to align with a Command plus. If you're on a PC, it will be Control plus. And so you'll see, I'm going to hold my Command key and then hit the plus symbol. Okay. My zoom went from 100% to 200%, and I now have a really nice large document to play in. To work with my type tool, I'm going to reset my toolbar, and you'll see that the type tool is on the right side, third from the bottom. It's a big letter T. Okay, again, if you hover, it's going to give you some information about the tool. You also see that there is a downward facing arrow in the corner, so if I long press, there is additional tools available to me. For today's purposes, I'm just going to work with the horizontal type tool and just reiterate that the vertical type tool works exactly the same. It's just going to make your type run up and down. Okay, so starting with my horizontal type tool, you'll note that my cursor is no longer an arrow. Okay, my cursor now indicates that I have my type tool selected. And now that my type tool is selected, you also see that my options bar has changed. And this is not going to be anything new to you. Okay, if you've used any kind of word processing program, you know that you can control your typeface and the style and the size and whatnot. So I'm going to simply click. I'll go ahead and type in, well, I was typing in fashion, but you'll see that I have white on white. You also see that my type is set up for white here. So I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to simply use my little curved arrow to make my type purple. And you'll see that that's loading here, or sort of a wine color. And I'll do the same thing. I'll simply click, and now I'll type in what I was going to type. Can't seem to type today, but there you go. Okay. Now, again, I can see that this is a Myriad Pro. It's in a regular style. It's at 60 points, and it's in this sort of wine color. But it's falling off of my document. So to move this, I'm going to come up to the top left tool. If you hover, it is your move tool. And I can come over now and just click and drag it so I can see it better. And if I want to edit this, I need to come back to my type tool. I can click within it, and you'll see that blinking cursor and this line appear underneath my type. And if I want to make a change, I just need to come over and click and drag to select all of it. And I'll come up here and look for a different typeface. And you'll see that there are a lot preloaded. If I just come in and scroll, there's plenty to work with. Okay, I know the name of my typeface, and here's a little sample of what it's probably going to look like. And you can see my type changing. But I can also filter this. So if you've done your reading on typography, you know that there are different families of type. And so in this instance, maybe I know I want a script. Okay, it will filter that down for me, and I can much more accurately find the kind of typeface I want to work with. And in addition, because you have the Adobe subscription, you can also use Typekit. And I'm not going to showcase that here, but Typekit will take you out to Adobe's website, and you can look for other typefaces that you'd like to use. And it'll walk you through how to download it and use it within this program. Okay. So for right now, I am going to grab Shoreline Script Bold. Okay. And I do believe this is one that I have downloaded previously. I don't know that you have access to it. And I can see if there are different styles associated with it. There are not. I can come over and change the size of my type so it's easier to see. And I can also click on this to change the color. Okay, maybe this isn't quite what I want since I don't have any styles here. I can come in and select a different one and see if I have styles. I don't. And I know that these have come from, some of these have come from Typekit, so some of these are not going to give me as many options. So if I want to try to figure out which ones do have options, you'll look for this little arrow here. I can click on that one. And now if I go to styles, I can see that there are two options. I've got the regular, or I can use a semi-bold, which is going to make that thicker. Okay. And so I'll grab my move tool and just click off, and I can see what that is going to look like. And at this point, what I want to note for you, because we've not talked about your layers panel so far, is that when you use your type tool and you enter type on your document, it's automatically going to put this on its own layer here. Okay, so for instance, if I don't like what this is looking like, I can hide it, or I could simply click the layer and then hit the little trash can. Okay, and I will come back and talk about layers deeply next week. So let's do this again. I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to click. I'm going to type my name, for instance. Maybe this time I'll do it on 2 lines, Jenny, and then Cook. And going back to my options bar, you can see that my name is centered. Okay, so I can come over here and choose a left alignment or a right alignment. And you also see that you can edit these individually. So just because this is all on the same layer and I entered it all at the same time, I don't have to highlight all of it. I could come here and just change my name. And so maybe I wanted to work with some contrast. And so perhaps I wanted to use more of a decorative font for my first name, and then maybe a script for my last name. Okay. All right, I'll move that so you can see that. And anything that I can do on this options bar, again, I can apply to pieces and parts. So I can go ahead and maybe make my name a little bit smaller and then make my last name larger. Okay, I don't have to use the presets. I can also highlight that number and then just use my arrow keys on my keyboard. Okay. And again, I can work fluidly. I could work on my entire first name. I could maybe just work on the 2 ends. Maybe I wanted to call that out for some reason. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do here. Again, using the basic functionality that you are familiar with from a word processing kind of program, okay, to apply to the information here. Something else that you can consider as you're working with type is that you don't need to enter them on the same layer. So I typed out Jenny and then I hit return and entered Cook. If I wanted a little bit more flexibility in my creative work, perhaps I will just choose to put Jenny on a layer, and you'll see again that it puts it on its own layer, and then I'll put Cook on its own layer. And because these are on separate layers, they're going to move independently. And so I have more control over whether I want them to perhaps overlap. Okay. And as we continue to work in Photoshop, you'll find that there are other things that we can do if they're on their own layers. I can apply individual filters. I can rotate. Okay, so on and so forth. Lots of things I can do. But again, for the time being, type, and then the options bar up here at the top. Okay. Finally, for today, I also want to point out that you can apply some effects. I'm going to make sure I'm on my move tool. Okay. I'm going to pay attention to my layers. And just to make this simpler, I'm going to delete Jenny Cook here. So I'll click on Jenny Cook, hit the trash can. And for instance, maybe I want my name to contrast with my last name, but I actually do want to use the same fonts. So to do that, again, I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer that says Jenny, and I'm going to come to my layers panel and look for this button that says FX. Okay, you'll see a little, again, Photoshop always wants to tell you what the thing is, and you'll see it lights up and says this is how you add a layer style. So I'm going to click. and you're going to see lots of different options here. Okay. I'm going to start perhaps with stroke, and you'll see that stroke adds a contrasting outline to my first name. Okay. You'll see lots of options here. I can thicken this up, make it thinner. I can position it on the outside of my name or on the inside. I can change the color. Okay. So again, lots of things to play with here. I could also play with beveling and embossing. And to do that, you'll see I've check marked this to turn it on, but to actually see the options, okay, see how stroke is highlighted and I have all these stroke options. I have to click on bevel and emboss to get my bevel and emboss options. Okay, so I can come in here, play with different effects. I can deepen, or I went the opposite direction. Now I'm deepening that effect, or I could reduce it. Okay, I could play with the size, and you'll see at some point with most things in Photoshop, if you go too far, it gets ugly. Okay, so again, just familiarize yourself with all of these options. I'm going to hit OK to accept that, and I'm going to go to my last name, and I'm going to use the exact same button, and this time maybe I will play with outer glow, and you'll see that my outer glow is set to white, so there is something happening here, but it's white on white, so I can't see it. So I'll go ahead and choose something else. Okay, there we go. So it may have looked like that was not working for me. It was not working. My blend mode, because I use Photoshop all the time, was set to screen, I think. So I changed that to normal, and now that it's on normal, I can continue to play with some of these options. Okay. You should not experience that. It generally will default to sort of beginner settings, but good lesson is if something looks like it's not working, just take a moment. It generally just means one of your settings is probably set up incorrectly, and just try to work through the problem. If it doesn't work, you can move on and play and experiment with something else, or feel free to email me, and generally I can problem solve most things in Photoshop. Okay. And so I've just applied a couple little effects. I'm going to hit OK. Again, I can use my move tool to place these closer together or center these, overlap them, what have you. Okay. And for today, that's where I'm going to stop. Again, type tool, your option bar, and then this button that looks like effects, which is your layer styles. Okay, you'll see that your blog post this week is associated with customizing type, and these are the areas I'll expect you to play with in Photoshop.